Go back to the trial as needed, but we also want to get to this story, which is very significant today as well. The Department of Justice is now responding after a government watchdog group obtained documents that they claim show that an arm of the DOJ was involved in helping to organize anti-George Zimmerman protests last year. He's, of course, on trial for murder after shooting teenager Trayvon Martin. Now, Judicial Watch says that it got the documents through the Freedom of Information Act. Let's take a look at a few of these, okay? This has to do with what their business was. CRS is the name of this organization. It's an arm of the Department of Justice. From March 25th to the 28th of 2012, they spent, this is right after the murder became public, they spent more than $1,100 in Sanford, Florida to work marches, demonstrations, and rallies related to the shooting and death of an African-American teen by a neighborhood watch captain. All right, now then they got this. Later in April, they spent $1,300 to provide technical assistance, conciliation, and on-site mediation during demonstrations that were planned in Sanford as a result of this trial. But the DOJ says that, quote, the Community Relations Service was in Sanford, Florida, fulfilling their mandated mission, which is to be a peacemaking arm of the Department of Justice. So let's talk about this with Tom Fitton, the president of Judicial Watch. Tom, welcome. Good to have you here today.
Martha. Thank you.
All right. So when you go through this, they're saying, you know, we've done this in many different situations. This is a peacemaking. They're saying the CRS is the department's peacemaker for community conflicts and tensions arising from differences of race, color, and national origin. And they say this is a role we've operated in for a long time. We were concerned about this situation in Florida, and we went down there to provide that help.
Right, and by their own admission, they went down to organize protests. And the protests were for the prosecution of Mr. Zimmerman in support of Mr. Martin. And that's fine. The protests themselves, you know, people have a First Amendment right to protest. But some of those protests obviously were racially charged, involving people like Al Sharpton, and had the Department of Justice going down there in a very the supposedly secretive organization. They would show up at these meetings with DOJ jackets and hats on, looking more like stormtroopers than facilitators and peacekeepers. So the idea that the Department of Justice was a mediating force here is false. They were promoting the protests against Zimmerman. Some of the meetings they helped promote and facilitate led to the firing of the police chief, which, as you reported earlier, is quite controversial. And you have to wonder whether the prosecution, which wasn't taking place, that was the reason for the protests, that took place subsequent to the protests would have happened but for DOJ's help.
All right, let's go back to this, because they claim that when you go through the documents that you got through this Freedom of Information request, that there's only one section that refers to providing any support for anything that was going on in this region in terms of these protests. They say the only time support shows up is in a travel voucher that says to provide interregional support for protest deployment. That indicates that they are supporting other CRS staff, not the actual protests that were going on. And they say that you deleted the word interregional to make it sound like they were providing direct support for these protests, which they say is not true.
Look, your viewers can go to the website of Judicial Watch and look at the documents themselves and look at the press reporting about what they were actually doing. But the word interregional is not on your document, the word interregional. Well, do you concede that? I don't know anything about anything being deleted about from those documents. The documents are on the website, so it's not like we're hiding anything. And, you know, sending the Department of Justice organizing a police escort for students to go in and sit in at the police chiefs of Sanford's office seems to be a bit more than mediation. This is a promotion of a protest. It's not being neutral. It's promoting one side of a controversy and in a racially charged way, and that's what's objectionable.
What evidence do you have that they were on one side? Because they say that there was a justifiable concern, given all of the attention that this case got, and the president himself came out and spoke about it. Let's actually play that sound from the president to take everybody back to how hot this moment really was. Let's listen to that.
You know, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. And, you know, I think they are right to expect that all of us as Americans are going to take this with the seriousness it deserves, and that we're going to get to the bottom of exactly what happened.
The they that he referred to is Trayvon Martin's parents. What do you make of that statement, and does it support or does it deny the claims that you're making about their work here?
Well, it suggests that the president is pressuring the local authorities in Sanford to to prosecute Zimmerman. I mean, I don't know how anyone else can conclude otherwise. And then as Department of Justice employees go down there, they're helping organize marches. The documents that we have, or the press reports, show that supporters of the Martin family were clear in that they perceived justice to be there for them. So, you know, the idea that someone mediating Sanford, mediating with the Sanford politicians who pressured for the prosecution of Mr. Zimmerman, and mediating with the protesters supporting the prosecution of Mr. Zimmerman is somehow seen as neutral is just bunk.
All right. We'll let you have your say. Tom Fitton, thank you very much. As we said, the DOJ says that they were there as a peacemaker. We report and you decide. Thank you, Tom.